I promise this is the last time you're going to see my face.
Actually, it is not easy to be the last one, right?
True.
I'm pretty much sure that you are a little bit tired, maybe? Yes, no? Yeah. So let me share with you an anecdote story. My first time at a baseball game. I don't know if you have been to a baseball game, but maybe it's a little bit boring, to be honest. And after 2.5 hours of that game in Toronto between the Toronto Blue Jays and Detroit Tigers, the speaker, after 2.5 hours, the speaker asked us, the crowd, to do what I'm asking you to do right now with me. So the speaker basically stopped the game and asked everybody to stand up, as I am asking you to do, please. Stand up.
Come on, don't be shy.
And you as well. And for 5 seconds, let's do some exercise, okay? And let's energize a little bit this room. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, guys, do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, not that bad. Okay, a little bit more energized right now. Okay, go back to your seats. So we are ready for the last session,
okay.
Right?
This is, I mean, I know you're tired, but you're more tired now, so...
No, it's another type.
Guys, thank you very much for staying with us until the end. Carlos and me are going to just have a little chat and conversation about some entrepreneurship. I cannot say lessons because I'm not anyone to teach, but I think with the expertise that maybe we can have in our respective roles, we can give maybe some tips to entrepreneurs, because we see a lot of startups, we see a lot of projects in our ecosystems, and I think it's interesting to wrap up this summit about innovation and sports with a little bit of conversation about entrepreneurship. So we wanted to start with, we're gonna go through different key steps or concepts. The first one actually is called the concept. So I think when an entrepreneur has an idea that wants to develop, he or she can have different purposes. Okay, yesterday we were talking, coming to Andorra, about what is the purpose of an entrepreneur. Sometimes it can be just receiving investment from a venture capital or from a business angel, and try to live with the money that they are generating and burn that money. Sometimes the purpose is more focused on, well, growing the company until it's mature enough to sell it to a third party and make profit out of it. And then the last one, which is maybe the most, I don't know if advisable one, but which is the real purpose. So having a purpose in your life when you're an entrepreneur, trying to accomplish the idea that you have, the dream that you have, and try to change the things, how they work. So Carlos, I wanted to discuss a little bit with you that first part of the concept of a startup. What is the concept of a startup for you? What do you think?
I'm seated in 4 advisory boards from different startups in the sports industry, and every month, more or less, I receive 1 or 2 calls or WhatsApps or through LinkedIn or email, asking for some kind of advice coming from startups. And when we meet, maybe virtually or physically, the first question I put to the guys is the following: what's your personal purpose with this? Do you want to grow with this company? Do you want to see the company grow? Do you want to sell it, which is not that bad at all? So what's your real purpose with this company, with this concept? And we take it from there. Because it is not the same if the main purpose is to grow with the company, is to see the company grow and eventually sell it or leave it or invite other to come and to contribute and to add value to the company is like being a father. Your childs are not yours. You are helping the child to grow, but the childs are not yours. So that's, I would say, the first step. Yeah. And to have a very, very clear and crystal understanding of what's the personal purpose of the entrepreneur.
I think that's very important because it links with the second concept, which is the team. And I think you have to be very transparent when starting a project about the concept and the final purpose that you have when creating that project, because you're going to have responsibilities, you're going to have people that you need to take care of, you're going to have a team that is going to or needs to follow you in this sense. And you have to be very clear with your team, what is the real purpose of the project, what is the company, because if you give, let's say, a misunderstood message, there can be a lot of problems with your team, also with your partners, if you are co-founders or you are 2 or 3 co-founders. I think you have to be all in the same page in order to succeed as a startup, because in the end there can be different interest between each of you, and it's very important to be a real team. We were talking with Etienne last night, and he was mentioning now the team is super important because in the end, even though he was not the founder of the company, he felt the company as his, and the purpose that the company has is the same that he has, because he's passionate about it. He's aligned with the strategy of the company and with the mission in the end. So here are 2 concepts. It's attitude, obviously, the passion, but also aptitude. Obviously, we can talk a lot about people and human and passion, but there has to be professional competencies, skills, and we've released with Carlos and with other partners some reports about talent in the sports industry. Because I think soft skills and hard skills are super important in terms of entrepreneurship, especially in the sports industry, because in the end, sports is the industry that it's moved by passion. It's not like, I don't know, economic or like fintech or agrotech or logistics, security. There's a lot of sectors where there's a lot of startups and a lot of technology, but sports is moved by passion, and I think that's very important as well. Yeah. Maybe you can share a little bit more about this talent in the sports industry report that we made.
Obviously, attitude and aptitude are the key things. I'm not that sold about passion. Okay, I would prefer commitment. Commitment, because at the end of the day, 80% of people in the world love sports at some extent, at some point, and at some, yeah. So I would prefer commitment. Commitment with the project, commitment with the rest of the team, and the team does not mean friends. Exactly. The team does not mean friends. It needs to be a balanced situation, combining distinctive attitudes and aptitudes or skills. You have mentioned the talent
in the sports industry.
The talent in the sports industry from a digital transformation perspective. Exactly. Report that we put together altogether last year, and we survey different experts and properties and from different parts of the world in terms of asking them what kind of skills they need in order to to hire in their companies, in their even startups, to take them to the next level. And the results are the following. The first set of skills that companies are needed are soft skills. So teamwork, communication, resilience, all this stuff. The second is project management. So people that are able to start a project from A all the way to Z, okay, in a methodological way, using tools, using approaches, etc. The third is some kind of knowledge about the sports industry. This means it is much, much better to know what's the governing body, for example, or what's FIFA, UEFA, or whatever, or fees, for example. And only the fourth set of skills were technical, meaning in this case, digital transformation skills. So, because at the end of the day, a startup, and especially in this case, is a company, so you need to know exactly how to proceed and how to combine and assemble the internal team with the external team. Etienne have mentioned very wisely everything about the advisors, right? And investors, advisor and investors, both or individually or combined as a capacity. And this is crucial to add value, not to add friends to the team, but to add value from different, capacities and different ways of thinking, etc., etc.
It's very interesting what you said about commitment instead of passion. And now that you're mentioning the extended team, the advisors, you have more experience, obviously, in the advisory role. What do you think the commitment has to be from the advisor? Because in the end, a startup, obviously, it's very important to have advisors, to have people that can guide you, but there has to be a relationship of trust. So how an advisor, or how can a startup trust someone to get advice? What do you think in this sense? Because you have that experience, not me.
I mean, commitment in both sense.
Yeah.
Sorry, and in both ways as well. Commitment means work hard. Work hard means invest some time, obviously. Means also make deadlines in both ways. So if you are committed to meet with the guys, or the guys to offer you some kind of shares, and there's a deadline, that talks about credibility, okay? And companies are about credibility, unless you have a big brand as your umbrella, which something happens and always helps, but otherwise deadlines, making deadlines, commitment, work very, very hard and be very, very transparent and honest, because at the end of the day, to tell the truth is the foundation of succeed.
Yeah, we were talking about being honest and challenging the ideas of those startups. Also, well, the business plan is maybe the thing that most entrepreneurs focus first, but I don't think it's the most important thing. I mean, it's very important, the business plan, but in the end, a startup, and also in this world that we are living, that it's unpredictable, you cannot plan everything. You have to be obviously a roadmap, a route, but a startup needs to be iterating all the time. Probably most of you, or the ones who are entrepreneurs or who are startups, know the lean methodology. Obviously, there's a lot of different methodologies in this sense for startup creation. But I think a business model cannot be like a static thing. It has to be evolving, it has to be moving, and we were talking about it before. Andres mentioned it in the last panel, listening to the people. So when you start listening to your stakeholders, to your customer, it's very important to know who is your customer, who you want to partner with for maybe collaborating as a provider, etc. I think getting feedback and listening, active listening to your stakeholders is very important, because they are the ones that are going to create your business plan in the end and your business canvas. So the business plan has to be iterating all the time, and a startup actually has the capacity to be changing and iterating, because they have small structures, they have obviously small resources, but they can be very agile in comparison, for example, with big corporates or bigger entities, you know.
But even within big companies and big entities, usually there are departments who actually are managed or run as mini startups to be more agile in comparison to the big, bureaucratic structures that sometimes are characterizing these big companies. At the end of the day, what matters is not the product, is not the service. What matters is how to satisfy a specific need that it is not already satisfied by other products and other services. So
the product market fit. The product market fit.
Absolutely. Yeah. And only few startups or initial companies are dedicating enough time to find out who are their competitors. And this is something that I would strongly suggest in order to identify your niche, your differentiation,
totally,
and your differentiation, issue. Why you instead of the others? And that should be the main question to be asked every single day, even, in order to improve. Why you instead of the other?
That's very important because sometimes I think entrepreneurs get in love with their ideas and they get blind, so they don't see what's around them. So they get in love, they fall in love with their own idea without knowing who's the customer, if there's a market for the product or service, if there's competitors. So I think that's very important. Try to, zoom out and see it with perspective and try not to fall in love with your idea, which I know it's complicated because in the end you are the founder, you are the one who has that dream. But it's very important to be objective in this sense. And this is very linked to...
Be objective, sorry. But also to put together a plan how to monetize.
Of course.
Because at the end of the day, and especially if you are looking for third-party investors, you need to present a business plan. And a business plan is not only about your product and your service, but also how to monetize. What's the return on this investment? And should be very, very crystal, very, very straight, clear, and honest.
Totally. Yeah, the business model that we were talking has to be very clear on how you're making profit and how you're gonna be self-sustainable in the end. And I was saying this is very linked to the last part of it, which is selling your idea, the pitch in the end. We've listened to very great pitches right now, but it's something that it looks easy, but it's very complicated. But I think there's some steps that I think entrepreneurs should follow when making a pitch. And the first one I would say is the introduction. Maybe it sounds silly, but it's very important in the first sentence to say who you are, who we are, what is our, what we do, and what is our purpose. We were talking about purpose. I think that would be the first step when you start a presentation, because in the end, as we've seen, startups, when they're looking for investment or when they want to sell their ideas, they have very short time. Pitches usually are 5-minute speech, 10-minute pitch, the very well-known elevator pitch, which it's also very complicated, and they have to adapt to those timings because investors and customers receive a lot of ideas, listen a lot of startups, and you have to be different than the rest of that. And the first sentence, I think it's very impactful. Then obviously you mentioned you have to tackle the problem. What is the problem that you want to solve? Is that really a problem, or do you think it's a problem? That's something that it needs to be very defined. And then after that problem, you just show your solution. Sometimes, I was saying before, people fall in love with their idea and they think the product is the best, but maybe there's not a problem to be solved. Maybe there's no market for that solution. And that's very important because if you have to show that there's a real market opportunity for your startup and for your solution. You were talking about competitors. How do you think we can tackle that issue when in a pitch? Because in the end, who is really your competitor? Sometimes it can be similar, but sometimes...
Yeah, it depends on the type of need that you are trying to satisfy and fulfill with your product or your service. But I mean, obviously, you can undertake a very sophisticated competition analysis, but sometimes it is not necessary. But obviously, you can Google, you can check, websites, apps, or you can talk to a lot of people. You can check articles, blogs, podcasts, etc. and get to know more who your competitors are.
And then obviously, I think in the pitch, obviously we were saying before, you need to show how you make money. The business model is super important, although it's going to be changing probably, it's going to be iterating, but you need to show your investors or your potential investors, your potential customers, how you make money and how is the return of the investment for them as well.
But also to identify, a kind of scoreboard with KPIs, maybe up to 10, okay, to make sure that the potential eventual investor has a clear idea of where and what are the key areas to monitorize in order to know if the project goes on the right direction or not.
Yeah, I was going to say that obviously it's different making a pitch for an investor and for just a customer, because what you said is very important. When you're facing a pitch with investors, you need to show how they're going to be benefit. Obviously, with a customer, the benefit is your product, your service, how you're going to help them. But for an investor, you need to show real numbers.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, it's this concept called vanity metrics. We're going to grow 200% exponentially. Well, you have to be realistic, and rather than saying what is the numbers that you're expecting in the next years, also the path that you have already covered. How have you started? How you have grown in the last years, and then you can take perspective and try to expect some growth for the future, but being realistic.
Exactly. Credible estimations,
Exactly.
credible forecasts. You cannot,
So no vanity metrics, please. And then obviously, this is going to be depending on the maturity of the startup, but showing who are your customers, which are the partners that you already have, even though you don't have paying customers yet, but people or entities, organizations where you have already made some pilot projects or some proof of concepts, you have tested some of your products. I think this is very important because it gives you credibility, it gives you support, even though if it's an investor or whether it's an investor or a customer. I think it's very important to show who are your partners, who are your customers, and definitely, as we said before, the team, who are your internal team and your external team, the advisors, the people that are guiding you, because that gives you a lot of credibility,
Yeah, and I would say that as a wrap-up, the last slide of the presentation should be a kind of summary. So in 4, 5, 6 bullet points, no more, very, very clear in 30 seconds to summarize what's the concept, what's the need that you are trying to satisfy, what's the niche, what's the business plan, what's the team, and that's pretty much.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Carlos, for the conversation. Thank you very much.
Jorge.
For the ones that waited here until the end, thank you very much for attending.
If you have any question, feel free.
And I wanted to say, that
Jorge
we're
and myself
going to do a Q&A if you want, so if you have any question, you can feel free to...
I think at the end. And Luis, if you want to come, it will be more than our pleasure, because you have plenty of experience as well.
Etienne has a question.
Feel free, Luis.
Yeah. 1, 2. I don't know.
Yeah.
You were mentioning the importance of a business plan. Having a bit of experience in startups and business plans and so on, one thing I'm sure of is that a business plan never happens. As an investor or a counselor, what importance do you attach to an entrepreneur sticking to his business plan?
I think that Jorge has mentioned flexibility. A business plan is not something static, especially in the early days of a company. You learn as you grow. As you do, you are in a daily basis learning what's going right, what can be improved. I would say that doing mistakes is not a mistake if you learn, okay? The mistake is not learning from mistakes. And be too stubborn to the initial plan. But at the same time, you need to know exactly that what's your objective to achieve. If we decide right now that we need to go to Rome, for example, from Andorra to Rome, okay? That's the goal. But you can, fly, you can go to Barcelona and then take a ship, you can go by car, by motorcycle, etc., etc. But the clear objective is to go to Rome, okay? You need to learn, but not changing the direction every single day. A kind of direction, and then you have a space to be flexible enough to adapt yourself and your business plan to the new conditions.
I think one thing is iterating, and another thing is completely change the purpose or the goal of your company, and that cannot happen because you lose focus. So a business plan, again, it has to be flexible, but it has to, as Carlos mentioned, needs to have a goal, a final goal, an objective, because otherwise it doesn't make sense to be working for a purpose that is changing constantly. So, absolutely.
And in front to an investor, to be honest. Yeah.
Anyone else? I don't see because of the light, so.
Any other question?
They're tired.
Yes.
Okay, I think then we can leave it here. Thank you very much again for attending and for being here until the end. Thanks again, Carlos, for the conversation.
Thanks
and looking forward to the networking now. I know it's been a tough day. We've already have some chats, but I think there's still a little bit of time to exchange contacts and learn a little bit from each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you.